Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you've not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from the NFL to the NBA, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And man, does it feel good to be back. I know it's been a few weeks since I've hopped up on here and recorded a long-form video for you guys, but as I'm sure some of you guys know, tax season just ended a few days ago, which is huge for me because it ends up freeing a lot of my time to now record for you guys. I know I'm still in college and have finals in a few weeks and stuff, but I can be back to recording every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So make sure to look forward to that for new uploads. Again, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And yeah, man, it just feels really, really good to be back here recording for you guys. And I'm sure, of course, we'll have some more uploads than just 3 a week, especially with the NFL season coming up here again in a few months. And then the NBA playoffs happening right now currently, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be going over my reaction to some of the first games of the first round, and then my predictions for the rest of the first round as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And let's get into it here today, starting off with the Magic and the Pistons. One of the few series I feel like in the first round with the East and the Western Conference that I really feel like could actually end up in an upset, and that's what I'm taking. I'm taking the Magic to win in about 6 to 7 games, no pun intended, here against the Detroit Pistons. Even though the Pistons are the number 1 seed, to me, they don't feel dominant in the Eastern Conference. And I kind of compared the Eastern to the Western Conference like this, to where you remember how back in the AFC and the NFC Championship a few months ago, we had the Denver Broncos with no Bo Nix, and then we had the Patriots who still felt really young and kind of felt like how the Boston Celtics were a few years ago when they made the finals. Like they just weren't quite ready for the spotlight yet. It felt like they were going to be good in the future, which and Boston was. They ended up winning a finals a few years later and have been good since. But they just didn't quite feel ready yet. And then you had the NFC to where you had the Rams and the Seahawks, and whoever went out of that game felt like they were going to win the Super Bowl. Those teams just felt way better than the 2 AFC teams. That's what it kind of feels like with the Eastern and the Western Conference. Like whoever wins out of the West, which I'm comparing to the NFC, just feels like they're going to beat whoever wins the East. Maybe Boston is the only exception I have. Like they have legitimate championship experience. They have a really, really good roster. Jason Tatum's looking healthy again, but it just feels like the West is so dominant. Like even if the Pistons were to win the East, it just does not feel like they can win the West. And honestly, I feel like the Pistons are going to struggle to even get out of the first round of the East. And now if the Pistons do win in the first round, which I think is totally possible, right? This is going to be a close series. This isn't going to be, I think the Pistons are going to win the next 4 games and win in 5. Like this is at least going to go to 6 or 7 games right now. And I think it's going to go to the Magic. Because I think one thing we forget about with Orlando is that Orlando was supposed to be how the Pistons were this year. Like they were supposed to be that big-time improvement team. They buffed their roster. They traded for Desmond Bane. Banchero was supposed to take that leap, which he kind of regressed this year. But he's looks like over the last couple of games of the playoffs, he's kind of turned that switch back on and has played really well and consistent over the last couple of games, which has been a problem, which is inconsistency for Banchero this year. Desmond Bane has been another one who's been kind of inconsistent, but they were supposed to be how the Pistons were, like take that next big leap. And I think the Pistons and the Magic were actually kind of on similar timelines in terms of progressing as a team. Like the Pistons a few years ago were one of the worst teams in NBA history. They were they almost lost like I think it was like 30 games in a row or something like that. I remember it was just crazy. And they end up now a few years later, they are the number 1 seed, a 60-plus win team. Last year they made the playoffs against the Knicks. Fell a few games short. They just didn't quite feel ready against New York yet, but they made a big-time improvement from where they've been at over the last decade or something like that. Just really a clown show. And the Magic were kind of on the same timeline. Like they have been really bad over the last 10 or so years, probably even longer than that. They've had some kind of outlier years where they made the first round and just kind of got smoked in the first round. But it feels like now they have a legitimate franchise superstar, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, and they buffed their roster. And I think a lot of people forget that the Magic, this team, if they can play up to their strength, with Franz Wagner healthy, Desmond Bane playing good basketball, Banchero playing good, consistent basketball, this team is a legitimate threat in the East. This is what everyone thought they were going to be heading into the season, and they look like it. They look like it against the Pistons a few days ago. Jalen Suggs playing great defense. He's a great defender. Banchero is a great scorer when he's on and playing consistently. Desmond Bane is a great number 2 option. Wagner, if you want to count him as a number 2 option, you can. And that's the one thing with the Pistons I think they really struggle with, is they don't have a consistent number 2 option. And I think this is where they're going to fall short, probably in the first round to me. But even if they get past the first round, going against New York, hell, even Cleveland, Boston, they don't have a consistent number 2 scorer. And they feel like one of the very few teams, I'd say them and honestly Atlanta, to me, are the only 2 teams that kind of don't have a really consistent number 2 scorer on their team. And I think you're really going to struggle. Again, in the regular season, they had 60-plus wins. That's great. They made great improvement. But you're not going against the Nets. I mean, remember some of the East. These had some of the worst teams in NBA history, especially at the bottom. The Nets, the Wizards, the Pacers. I mean, just horrible, horrible teams. And they're not playing teams like that. The Magic, going in a 7-game series against them is going to be really tough, especially if they keep playing like they have over the last couple of games. And I think Jalen Duren is one of the finalists for the most improved player of the year. He absolutely deserves it. He has made great strides. He was an all-star this series. He's going to be a great player for a long time to come. But I don't really know if I trust Jalen Duren be my true number 2 scorer in a 7-game playoff series. I like Asar Thompson, another finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. They have great defenders on that team, but they don't have great scorers on that team. I don't trust Tobias Harris as far as I can throw him being a number 2 scorer on a playoff team. We've seen it with him with Philly for years. He just constantly disappointed in Philadelphia for a long time, especially in the playoffs when they really needed him most. So they're going to struggle finding a number 2 scorer on that team. And I think that's where Detroit, I think they're going to get upset in the first round against Orlando. I think Orlando, again, like I mentioned earlier, we forget that this team was supposed to be like Detroit. They could have been a potential number 1 seeded team, but they've been inconsistent this year. They've been disappointing, but it feels like they're kind of finding that gear now. It feels like they're getting things going over the last couple of games. And if they can find that spark, and Mosley can finally figure out how to get this team going, find a good game plan for them, find out how to scheme around Banchero and really make him the main guy, they'll be good. And I think this team could actually really make a deep run in the playoffs, not even just win in the first round. This team is really good talent, and they have good bench depth. They have good guards. I think their center position is just kind of average. I like Isaac. I like Wendell Carter, but I think it could be a little better. But obviously, there's nothing they can do about that now. But I like Wagner. I like Suggs. I like Bane. I like Banchero, of course, when he's on. So I think this Magic team is going to give this Piston team some real trouble here in the first round. And again, the Pistons, I think they've had a great season, but I think in the off season, even if they go on to win the NBA Finals, which I don't think is going to happen, but even if they do, they have to make some improvements on the offensive side of the ball for them next to Cade Cunningham. Because right now, what I feel like it's going to be in this series is give Cade the ball and have him shoot a ton of shots. Try getting into the line. Like, that's what it's going to feel. It feels like to me the Pistons are going to have no real game plan on offense now in a 7-game series. So, yeah, they feel like one of the few teams right now in the playoffs that just do not have a true number 2 option on their team. So I think they're going to struggle big time. I'm going to take the Magic in about 6 to 7 games. I think it's going to be a tight series. It's going to be a physical series, but I'm going to take the Magic in an upset over the Pistons in the first round. Next, I want to talk about the Trailblazers and the Spurs. Again, a lot of these series. The first round in every year for the NBA is a lot of times 4-game sweep, 5 games, maybe 6 games. You don't have very many game 7s. A lot of the times it's just the teams on the bottom, they just kind of scrape in through the play-in, or like a 6-seeded team like the Hawks that they just don't feel as good as the top 3 teams in that conference, whether or not it's the East or the West. And it's just, this is going to be a 4-game series with the Blazers and the Spurs. I watched that game last night. Wemby is ridiculous. Like, he is just fucking ridiculous to watch. He really is. That stretch there in the third quarter, where They were literally just giving him the ball, and he was just toying around with the Trailblazers. Like, he's sitting there shooting fading threes in the corner, spin around threes, spinning around in the paint, literally just like leaning over to the rim and putting it in. And I know he's done this all season, but against a playoff team now in a 7-game series, the Trailblazers just don't have enough. I love Denny Avdia. Look, I'm a Wizards fan. I live about an hour or so away from DC, and obviously DC's just been absolutely awful for God knows how long, really my entire life. They've had a couple good years with John Wall, but there's not really a story needs to be told about the Wizards. They're just absolutely shit. But seeing Denny Avdia really improve with the Blazers right now and be a number one option for a playoff team is just really good to see. He has come such a long way. But the rest of the team really is just not great. Scoot Henderson is a decent player. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype on it. I mean, you remember Scoot Henderson was in talks of being the number one overall pick over Wemby a few years ago. And he was the number 3 overall pick, and he just hasn't quite lived up to what he was supposed to be coming out of the draft. And I think for, Drew Holiday, he's kind of towards the end of his career. He's still playing good ball, but he's not what he was on Boston a few years ago, Milwaukee a few years ago, like when he really felt like, he was a big reason for those teams winning a ring. He's a good player. I think he'd fit a really good role player role in terms of a championship team still, but he's just not the player he once was. He's just decent. And, Shaden Sharp is a good player. Clinnigan, Robert Williams off their bench. One of the strengths of the Trailblazers is they are a really good rebounding team. And I think that's their strength, but that's not going to overcome, their weaknesses against the Spurs in this series. They're just outmatched. Guard positions, not necessarily small forward. I think Avdia is the best small forward in this series, but just about everywhere else, they're outmatched. They just do not stand a chance against the Spurs. So I'm going to take the Spurs in 4 games. Again, the Trailblazers have a great young core. I think they have a lot to build on. In the offseason, they're going to have a lot to acquire. I think the draft is going to be big for them. Go out and acquire a guard to play next to Denny. I think Denny would still play at his best next to a ball handler who can really handle the ball. I think that's what they need. Again, I really like Drew Holiday, but he's just not an electric scorer, especially anymore. He's still a pretty good defender, but he's older. He's just not an electric scorer. I feel like that's what they need next to Denny. I feel like they really need another second option next to him. And, again, kind of like the Pistons, even though the Pistons are a better team. And obviously Cade's better than Denny, who's their number one option, but they just don't really have a second option next to Denny. And they need to go out and really target a guard in the offseason to handle the ball next to him. And that's just what they're missing right now. Again, Jeremy Grant, they have decent players, but they have to improve their roster. This is going to be the Spurs in a sweep in 4 games here. The Hawks and the Knicks, again, kind of a similar story here. I think the Hawks are a really good team. Jalen Johnson has improved a ton. He has been one of the most improved players in a long time. I mean, he's really exploded to be a fantastic player over the span of this season. So that's great to see. I think he's going to be the next franchise star for the Hawks. They have some other really good young pieces. And Onyeka Okongwu has really come along, especially in his 3-point shooting. He's like doubled his 3-point shooting totals this year. He's been fantastic shooting the ball. He looked good against the Knicks. But there's 2 problems for the Hawks. One, they're just physically outmatched, especially down low at the center position. Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, who's coming off their bench, just completely towers over any of their centers. Mohamed Gay is just not big enough. He was getting ready to foul out in the 3rd quarter against the Knicks. Like, he's just, it's too much for this team to overcome. They just can't do it. And Okongwu, again, is an undersized center. They just don't have the height or the strength down low to compete with this Knicks team. Karl Anthony Towns, for one as well. Like, one of the underrated parts of his game is he is pretty physically imposing. He's a big guy. He's over 7 feet tall, and he does get physical down low. He may not necessarily be the best defender in the world, even though he had a couple blocks against the Hawks, but offensively, they're just not going to be able to stop the Knicks at all. Like, they're just not going to be able to. They're just not big enough down low. And another problem they have, I love Dyson Daniels. It's very rare now to get excited over a defender, like a player who just plays really good defense. Getting excited over seeing someone's defense, like Wemby and Dyson Daniels are like one of the very few players I just get excited just purely watching them play defense. Like, they're defensive players at heart. But the thing is with Dyson Daniels is his offense is so bad that it negates how good his defense is. And the thing is, it's weird with him is he's too valuable of a defender to have him be on the bench, but he's so bad on offense. It's just like he's a liability to have out there. And especially being a guard who cannot shoot the ball at all. Like, when I was watching that Hawks and Knicks game the other day, he had a open floater hit the corner of the backboard, and then he had a couple of open threes, which, mind you, they were leaving him open on purpose. He airballed them both. So it's just like they have to figure out something there because it's too much, and they don't have good enough floor spacing. Again, he has one of the most badass nicknames, the Great Barrier Thief. Like, that's a hell of a nickname to have. He is a great perimeter defender. His length, his speed, his acceleration. He's just a great perimeter defender, but he is so bad on offense. And they're going to have to figure that out because in the offseason, they're going to have to go get a big man. No doubt about it. Whether or not they draft one or they just go get one, they need to do something. They have to get a big man. There's no doubt about that. They had Kristaps, so they traded him. And mind you, too, the Hawks were a below average team before the All-Star break. They've statistically been the best team in the East after the All-Star break. But it's going to catch up to them in a 7-game series. You're not playing against the Nets, the Wizards. You're not playing against teams like that. You're playing against the Knicks in a 7-game series. That's just not going to fly anymore. Like, one thing about the Knicks is I think this is now 3 to 4 straight seasons of 50-plus wins for them, and they have a lot of chemistry as a team. Like, this team has played together for a while now. Brunson's been there. Josh Hart's been there for a while. Mitchell Robinson. Like, these guys have been there a long time, and they played together for a while. So there's a lot of chemistry there. So I'm going to take the Knicks in 4 games, and the Hawks, again, they've had a great run, but they just don't feel like they can compete with the Knicks. Maybe they can pull off a game in Atlanta or something like that, but just not much going there for them. Just going to kind of fast fire through some of these next ones. Again, 76ers and Celtics in 5. I mean, I think the 76ers may end up getting a game. Just because I think Paul George has played well since he's come back from suspension. Tyrese Maxey has had a really good season. And Andre Drummond has actually been a pretty good fill-in for Joel Embiid, but they have no Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is the unluckiest player, not only in NBA history, but sports. One of the most in sports. He was finally starting to look like he was coming back to really all-star level form. He's been playing great. He was starting to kind of play consistent games again. Then he gets appendicitis for the playoffs. Now it's looking like he's not going to come back at all in the first round. And by any miracle, the 76ers win in the first round. He may not be back at all in the second round. So the 76ers are just once again screwed over by Joel Embiid injuries. And it's a shame, too, because I feel like we've been robbed of watching an all-time great. Like, very few players have been able to go head-to-head with Nikola Jokic at center. Like, really none throughout the last 10 years besides Joel Embiid. Wemby's still very young. He's only been playing a few years, and this is his first real year as an MVP candidate. But we've been, like, Jokic is probably going to finish as a top 8 to 12 player of all time by the time his career is all said and done. And Joel Embiid was the only player to really be, like, neck and neck with him in terms of every season as being the best center in the league. And injuries have just completely derailed it for him. And it's a shame. Like, playoff runs, everything, we'll just probably never get to experience a deep Joel Embiid playoff run. It's a shame. I really feel like this year, with the East kind of being so weak, that if he were to really now be healthy, that the 76ers could have a shot with VJ Edgecombe playing as a really, really good rookie. Tyrese Maxey playing so well. Paul George playing well out of the suspension. I feel like they really had a shot. They have a great roster. And they just now against the Celtics, who are one of the teams. I feel like the Celtics are going to come out on top in the East, by the way. I feel like they're going to go to the finals. But we'll talk about that more as the weeks come along here. But yeah, the Celtics in 5 over the Sixers. Again, Jason Tatum playing really well again. He's looking like he's coming back into true form now after his ACL tear. Jaylen Brown, championship experience. One of the very few teams in the league that even have championship experience on their team at all. Out of their all-stars, none of these teams are true number one options really have any playoff experience or finals experience at all. And the Celtics are like the only team in the East that have that. It's pretty wild. So, yeah, Celtics in 5 over the Sixers. And another one that I think will be a really quick series is the Suns and the Thunder. Thunder in 4 games. Look, the Suns, Dylan Brooks, it's going to be fun to watch. There's going to be a lot of shit talking and this and that, but Thunder are going to take it in 4 games. It wasn't even close the other day against the Suns, right? I think they might end up making some games close. Devin Booker's been great scoring over the last couple of months of the season, and just really, in terms of his whole career, he's been a fantastic scorer. Jalen Green is kind of too inconsistent, and their roster just can't keep it. They're just not good enough to compete with the Thunder. Very few teams are. Like, the Thunder are the best team in the league. And I feel like the Spurs are the only team that can really compete with them. But, yeah, the Thunder in 4. There's just not too much to go on about. They're the defending champs, and they're still rolling right now. They were the number 1 team in the entire league, and I have no other reason to believe that the Suns are going to manage to even win 2 games in this series, or even really a game, more or less, this series against the Thunder. So Thunder in 4. Raptors and Cavs. I think it's a series that could get pretty interesting, but I'm going to take the Cavs in 6. I like the Raptors, but again, just I don't feel like their team is quite good enough. Brandon Ingram's had a really good season. Scotty Barnes, just not quite enough playoff experience for him yet. I just don't think they're ready yet. I think this time next year, we will be talking about the Raptors different, especially if they have a really good offseason. I think this team is an offseason away from really being able to compete, but I'm going to take the Cavs in 6. I think the Raptors will pull off some games, but I think Harden, I think Mitchell, Mobley, it's a really good roster. It is. It's a really good roster. So I think the Raptors are going to have a tough time keeping up with them over 7 games. And I think the Cavs, they've really come along in the second half of the season as well. So they had a bit of a tough first half of the season, but they've been playing well, especially since they acquired Harden. And it's a tough 1-2 punch to guard Harden and Mitchell. So I'm going to think the Cavs in 6 games there. Should be interesting. The Timberwolves and the Nuggets, this one may surprise some people, but I'm going to take the Nuggets in 5 games. Again, Anthony Edwards is dealing with that injury Steph Curry had. What's it called? It's called like runner's knee, I think, or something like that. To where it won't get better unless he just sits for months at a time. Like Steph Curry just sit for a couple of months. And it kind of derailed the entirety of the Warriors season. And they don't really have a choice to sit Anthony Edwards for a couple of months, because obviously that means they wouldn't be able to win any sort of series at all without Anthony Edwards. And I think one thing, too, with the Timberwolves that they're really going to struggle with is Rudy Gobert. They say, oh, well, it's a great matchup for Jokic to be able to stop, or Gobert to stop Jokic. But it's not, because Gobert is one of the worst perimeter defending centers in the league. Like, statistically all time, Rudy Gobert is one of the best interior defenders of all time. He has multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. He's been fantastic. He's one of the best rim protectors to ever do it. People may not like him, but it's just facts. But the problem is, when you're guarding Jokic, you're not guarding him within 5 feet of the rim. He's a great perimeter scorer. He's a great passer. He's a 7'1" point guard. So Gobert is at a complete disadvantage guarding Jokic. It's a nightmare for Rudy Gobert guarding Jokic. That's why I think Jokic is going to put up some of his best numbers against the Timberwolves and dealing with this injury. And here's the thing with that. Is his three-point shooting has really come along in his career. He's one of the better three-point shooters in the league, which is pretty surprising. Like, when he first came into the NBA in 2020, I was like, one of his weaknesses was his three-point shooting. Like, he is an explosive athlete. But the thing is, he has both. And that's what makes him so dangerous, and why they made such deep playoff runs over the last couple of years, is Anthony Edwards' explosiveness, getting to the rim, and his three-point shooting has been pretty much unguardable. Well, now, with this injury he has, it's going to be hard for him to get to the rim at all. And again, can he still do it? Yes. But even just losing this much explosiveness is like this much in the NBA, especially if you're talking in a 7-game series. So it's going to be tough for this Timberwolves game, or for this Timberwolves team, to win many games in this series. I think Jokic, again, this stretch, I mean, I don't think the Nuggets have lost a game in the last 12 games. They're 12-0 over the last 12 games. So it's going to be tough for the Timberwolves to win a couple of games, I think, in this series. Anthony Edwards is their main piece. They have great depth, but he's dealing with that injury Curry had, where he had to be sidelined for a couple of months, and the Timberwolves can't do that. And if they do that, they're going to just lose the rest of their games. So it's going to be tough. They may end up winning a game in Minnesota, maybe a couple of games in Minnesota, but the Nuggets are on a tear right now. And I didn't even think particularly in game one, the Nuggets played great. I thought they turned the ball over a ton. Jokic kind of had a slow start for the first 3 quarters of the game and still finished with a triple-double, which is crazy enough to say. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't even necessarily think the Timberwolves or the Nuggets played that great, but the Timberwolves had a lot of sloppy possessions, turnovers all over the place, missed opportunities, and just a lot of stupid fouls. Like Julius Randle was fouling all over the place. And it was a little much. And I just don't think the Timberwolves can really win this series. I'm going to take the Nuggets in 5. Last series I want to talk about here today is the Rockets and the Lakers. I think this one's going to be really interesting. And I think this one actually came down to whoever won game 1 the other day. And it was the Lakers. And one thing I think we forget about with LeBron is, yeah, Luka and Austin Reeves may be out, but those teams LeBron carried for years in Cleveland, he made a lot of the players around him better. And they weren't necessarily all-star caliber players. They were around the same caliber of players this team has right now. Luke Kennard, who had almost 30 points the other night, shot 5 for 5 from 3. DeAndre Ayton, who is a pretty quality center. He's pretty dangerous when he gets hot, right? And Rui Hachimura, who's a decent player, and Marcus Smart, who has a lot of playoff experience. Obviously, there's no replacing Reeves and Doncic right now, but he can make the players around him better. He doesn't have to go out there and score 40 a night. Like, one of the things is his scoring is still so good, but he's making the players around him so much better. And people forget about that, LeBron, especially in his older years now. I feel like his IQ has gone up even more giving his players the ball. He gives them the ball at the right time. I mean, it's just, the Lakers are still a threat even without Doncic and Reeves. People act like they're cooked now without him. But I don't care, LeBron's, 40, 41 years old? He's going to elevate the team around him to play at new heights. That's just the kind of player he is. And the Rockets, the thing is with the Rockets is, even with KD, I feel like this team still isn't quite good enough to be able to get to that next level. I feel like Amen Thompson is a all-world defender, but still lacks on offense. KD, I don't know if I really trust this team quite as much to just get far. Like Alfred Sengun had a really bad game the other night against the Lakers. And do I trust him to take that next step in the playoffs? I don't know. Jabari Smith looked good against the Lakers the other night, but they had such a hot start the other night, even with the Lakers having such a hot start. The Rockets, I feel like, started off the best they could and still didn't win that game. There's a lot of sloppy turnovers. I feel like it's going to be tough for the Rockets to win this series. I'm going to think the Lakers in 7 games, maybe 6 games, but I'm going to say at least 7 games. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for the Rockets to win that series. And I think the Lakers, it's going to be a pretty incredible story when I think it's all said and done for them. I think they will be able to get at least Luka or Reeves back. At least one of them back will make a huge difference. And, yeah, I think this whole run for the Lakers is going to be a story to tell. So I think it's going to be a pretty good run for them. And lastly, for the next couple of seconds, 30 seconds or so, they're going to announce the Defensive Player of the Year tonight. The finalists are Chet, Asar Thompson, and Victor Wembanyama. That's obviously going to Wemby. I think he could win it unanimously, to be honest with you. And I would not be surprised. He's averaged 3.1 blocks per game, 11.5 rebounds, and a steal a game with about 100.6 defensive rating to about 105.3 defensive rating. He has just been all world on that defensive side of the ball. It's just been pretty incredible to watch. So if you guys were wondering my opinion on who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year tonight, it's definitely going to be Victor Wembanyama. And I'd even say he'd go to win it unanimously. Like I said, there's no chance Asar and Chet aren't going to win it. They've had great defensive seasons, but there's no chance they win it over Victor, right? So, yeah, man. So I figure I'd throw that in there. And I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Again, it feels good to be back. Again, make sure to stay tuned every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new uploads. And again, even throughout later weeks, I'll probably throw some more uploads in there. So, yeah, man, it feels good to be back. Thank you all for watching, and per usual, y'all, take it easy.